We are live, all right. Hello, everyone. I am Richard Millett, the one and only. And this is the quarantine stream, 59th one. And sure, why not? We're feeling groovy. I mean, you know, it's a pretty groovy lot, you know? And let us now hear the ever wonderful, ever lovely, ever green quarantine stream theme, shall we? Beautiful. This is called Flowers at the Foot of the Cave. Swinging light bulb above a cracked basement window, a painting depicting the creation of creation, and a makeshift bed. I made up a new name for you, but I'll only keep in my head. My head. Look at the jewel resting in the bottom of the wooden cup, or the stack of handwritten sheets explaining the steps of the ritual in rich, deep red. And the names of everyone there exist in my head. My head. Charcoal renderings of saints ripped from a magazine and pinned to the door, dented bits of metal shaped to make a mosaic and pushed into the floor. Quarter-inch thick spray-painted silver ribbons looped like ringlets in the air, and the floating stray white veins from a feather landing on your hair. Here I sit half childish, with freshly washed clothes strewn over the chair. A tray with orange peels, melon rinds, and empty glasses rests balanced on the table's edge, while I'm reading a map leading to a room more colorful than the womb, where I can overhear things other than gurgling and organs rushing. But still, this will always be in its infancy, because love is where Genesis greets infinity. And for proof, you can look in my eyes, even though I won't confirm or deny how much of this is true. But I trust that will get worked out by you. It's called Submerging. My thoughts stop. My muscles go slack. I sink into the gray water. I rise, pick up shells, and see something inside. I see a spotlight bathed in cream, a turtle swimming slowly, and bioluminescent plankton out past the reef. I am not the follower. I have nothing to prepare for. I am not the leader. I've got no form. At this moment, I'm no one's son, except for my father's father's father. My head stays underneath. No new oxygen, but for the time being, I've got all I need. I am not the follower. I've got nothing to wait for. I'm not the leader. I'm just being born. At this moment, I'm no one's son, except for my mother, the clouds, the sun, the land, the water. All is one. All is one. I have come. All is one. Open reach. All is one. To infinity. All is one. Circle soul. All is one. Bird's beak. All is one. Silver seed. All is one. We have come. What is a theory but an untested idea? And what is a bad theory? Well, it's not that much different than a wish. Do you think, are you arrogant enough to think that history has been leading up to you and that you contain the wisdom of everything that came before you? Maybe there's something you didn't see. With all of that in mind, this is called Sympathy for the Cowboy. Sympathy for the cowboy, all alone on the range. After the war ended, he was forced to change his name. Sympathy for the cowboy, holding his dying brother, who begged with his last breath, "Tell mother I died with honor." Sympathy for the meth lab, and all who fight in harm's way, who hope to abolish minimum wage and charge only $15 a day. Sympathy for modern times and those who argue that they're right. Sympathy for the victim who already has all the laws on their side. Sympathy for the student who's only lived in theory in a hammer and sickle t-shirt walking away from the barricade. Sympathy for the lawsuit and all who fought for reform. Sympathy for the bumper sticker telling you to be reborn. Sympathy for the stallion running free and too wild to ride. Sympathy for the idiot who tried. His wife cried, "Him and his foolish pride." Sympathy for the strawberry and all the worn out codes. So much used corduroy. So many wasted nights. So many blackened fingers rubbed from newsprint. Sympathy for the strawberry and the trial separations. Press releases pleading for privacy. Of course, doing it for the kids. Sympathy for the nihilist, sucking on his cigarette, cutting you off in traffic, no constraints of guilt or regret. Sympathy for the stalker, on his computer outside, looking at pictures of you in high school, saving each one, even if it takes him all night. Sympathy for the cowboy, whose son moved off the ranch, said he might be coming back soon, if there's no change of plans. This is called passing for white. You've used it before. Posting signs pointing to the closest church. Hurry, he needs an infusion, and his coffee is cold. He stayed up all night to see himself dancing on television. The church is closed to be reopened by the mayor's cousin in construction, saying Garcia instead of Gracia, and then confusingly adding, hey, I'm Italian, because never mind. The glistening grocery store, the tavern with daily fashion shows. He set up a conference call with you know who, and he's trustworthy because he looks like me, big white belly like a fish. The hotel with large chunks of missing bricks, the police station next to the building with a sign in the front window pasted in that says all law firm, a truck enforcement officer standing in the oncoming lane with his arms outstretched in ecstasy, overseen by a smiling baby who's somehow able to say, I could smile 12 weeks from conception. I show my hand. I know, I always show my hand. Meanwhile, 7 to 5 a.m. Two cars, 3 spaces apart in the White Castle parking lot. One man each gets out. On the left, he's wearing jeans and a flannel shirt and a cowboy hat. On the right, a charcoal gray business suit. They walk in a V-shaped meet at the door with a handshake, then heated conversation. The corners of the cowboy's mouth start to bubble and foam. As she's wobbling down the sidewalk, her skin dry, clothes somehow hang off her as she's watched by a man in a tracksuit holding a cell phone to his ear in silence. 20 feet away, the party crew pulls a U-turn as she's wobbling down the sidewalk. Lance Romance throws 20s at the guys waving away fruit flies, then shows his people why this is the finest fire extinguisher you'll ever find. The party crew spots the car wash and gets in line. They watch the jets bubble and foam, pretend they're superheroes with unlimited powers to make bubbles and foam. Theranos Industries deployed a work-approving ecosystem, agreeing in a settlement on a widespread future technology. She said accusingly and secretively, retiring her bloodlust company. Watch it bubble and foam. Frozen in place, the beer can, hair extensions, pubic wear, bondage wear, eagle eyes, white fumes, flying fingers, tops and bottoms, middling kingdom, gamblers rejoice. I am in a flood zone. Watch them bubble and foam, where form follows steam, bourbon follows cream, bubble and foam over the safety warning. The crew delights. Set one sweat glands reeling with a shark tooth covered in pudding. The owner urges everyone to look out the window at the condo, tow truck, victim, night, restaurant, uniform, camera, newspaper, pink, bark, car, yard, new restaurant, as if he's got some psychic powers. He was taught the meaning of versatility, respect for the law, trust for fistfights, and an arid sense of humor that snorts debris when under the advisement of enforced idleness. It's called Investigating Mitsy. She rides around the merry-go-round wearing satin slippers, chewing pink peppercorns. Her eyes are a miracle in the way they paint names in the minds of rain clouds. The lightning reaches out to introduce itself. The Queen of Atlantis draws filigree for the king while he's taking his bath. Bristling lips kiss the teeth of the key ring and lick ankles and mouth. She holds a bouquet of clarinets, wearing a lavender herringbone robe and nodding at buckets of soap. Her elbows hold her weight on the sand dune decorated with still wet seashells and teacups half filled with a treacle she pours onto tree roots. The Queen of Atlantis plans where the French and English will meet. The king eats suckling pig and excites the court over soaking his feet. This is called People. I am a young man, closed off in this room. My name, it doesn't matter. Where I'm from, I can't tell you. I always wanted to control my own destiny, not share responsibility, so that I could be free. They sent me off to college so I could learn the law. I met a lot of people, each one with a different cause. I turned myself to physics and astronomy to see if I could throw away the seeds they put in me. I drifted down to the south and I saw it was vast. I memorized equations on the eyeless ending sand. I knew that my superiors, they were very strong. They would put me up in space and never steer me wrong. But my expectations didn't fly, they kept me on the ground. The paperwork was drafted and I was shown around. They checked my past for arrests, my retinas were scanned. I hoped that there would come a day where I could take command. They made me go and lock the doors and cue the landing lights. It was a secret mission in the middle of the night. The burners started blaring. I crawled inside my suit, knew I wouldn't come back even if they asked me to. I am a young man closed off in this room. My name, it doesn't matter. Where I'm from, I can't tell you. I always wanted to control my own destiny, wanted to go and vanish up in the slipstream. The emperor looked at the head of the horse, lifted his hand and picked out the brain, opened his mouth and smeared the remains. He dressed his servants as nymphs and pans. Little boys in the nude stayed in the pool to bite on his body while he swam. His brother said, his sister said, if breath is a blade that desires the cage, claim your birthright before you're saved. Had his brother killed, made it a crime to laugh, attack the statue whose clothes matched his own, his bleeding fist sunk into the gold. He memorized the lives of the gods. His mother and Jezebel stole him a tunic. He began planning his burial. At night he debated with Jupiter. He saw Palatine Hill. The volcanoes were calm before the Christians burned. Diamond-tipped shovels were used to pierce the columns and arches, jewels and violins. The violins on Palatine Hill played like birds colliding in the air. The torches flared. All the grain was set glowing. The senator's body rolled back on the sheets, his speech like a paused spasm, murmuring, I'm nursing a viper. The rest of the ward willingly succumbed immediately. In the middle of the gymnasium were booths with men in bulletproof vests giving out ballots and voluntary vaccinations to guard against contaminants. While in line, you could read pamphlets on the issues or flip to pictures of festering boils. It's slippery and strange to walk alone. Sealed lips will keep the borders closed, and no infestations will travel north. Nothing to arrest security, just a cure to keep people in the grasp of liberty. The medicine was made with pearls dissolved in vinegar. The choice was made by pulling the lever. The searchlights were made for us by the protector. A thief entered. Everyone was roused. The wife and kids looked at the head of the house. He opened his robe and threw a small bomb. Later, standing over the intruder's body, he thought through history and spoke his favorite quote, I want him to feel like he's dying. Free grain for everyone who asks. Free grain for everyone who enters. Wheat in exchange for marble. Wheat for the state. She takes the leather, squirms in the saddle. The dust closes her eyes. I can see the red jacket from here. Two girls climb the stairs, very poised and aware. They'd been here before, the Los Angeles smog against their backs. Two men arrive the next morning to drop off a pair of glasses and smear the window pane. The teenager can't make a sale, so he packs up his stereo equipment and his clock radio, exits out past the telephone pole. When they were done, they sat in the kitchen and carved up some watermelon. An hour later, they threw away their clothes. Young man in the backyard, the owner doesn't know he's there, taking a drink from the garden hose. Drops his flashlight on the ground. He dropped his flashlight on the ground. This is called Life Isn't Hard. The hour ends. The light bends down into a bluish brown. This man can program situations from his fingertips into any town. Inch by inch, the ground grows thin. The twin and his father begin to cause alarm. The taxi quits, the street spits its cement in the air. The rider grows quieter, seeing the broken glass hang from her hair. Inch by inch, the ground grows thin. The bankers begin signing citations for fraud. Congratulations around the table. Plans are made to auction any residual minerals. The phone rings. The professor brings flowers to the cement. The student laughs, burns charts and graphs to everyone's amusement. Inch by inch, the ground grows thin. The anchormen begin questioning the cause. I got Earth in a fingertip. The speed of rotation. Did you see the loss of gravity in the city? People's umbrellas and sunglasses floating around. The water was flowing through State Street. People were swimming over the ground. Did you see the cops throw off their badges and dismantle their guns? They got on top of their squad cars, on their knees, worshiping the sun. I got Earth in a fingertip. Fire and holes surround the parched, silent fields of brown, and soon they will be flaming out and leave a puff of smoke. Merry cries under autumn skies sink the isolated dream and its distanced, blurring view. Nora wrote about the vanished boat that tried to dock off the Irish coast and sailed in between the mists, was never seen again. Replacement folks in their town, the clocks are all tightly wound, and people can't decide if it's illusion or if it's true, but I know there is less of me and almost nothing left of you. The frenzy took over. The reverie increased elucidation. The foundation was accumulated. Thomas Paine said, and I quote, I have always strenuously supported the right of every man to his own opinion, however different that opinion might be to mine. He who denies another this right makes a slave of himself to his present opinion, because he precludes himself the right of changing it. A bad theory is fundamentally no different than a wish. It's one we don't do that often. Perhaps we should. It's called No More Burlesque. Extraction. Thin metal claws and clips like feelers or a hair sliced down the middle and carefully pulled off of a list. Discipline, resist. The reading poison of thoughts extemporized and swept from a dingy mind. The mind articulated in plagiarist's terms. My grandfather is sick, and guilt projected onto a thrusted hand, silently implying a demand of satisfaction. And the water in the pipes runs dry rust, and the oil in the plane siphoned and given to the next contributor, prevented by disintegrating mortar. The wall was raised, the field free for plowing. An entry for an enfant terrible, and a minuscule crack in the porcelain, a micro-point pried open with a petulant eye roll appealing to youth fetishists and the prematurely decaying, while wearing a prostitution ring, a scarlet A seen by anyone who can decipher semaphore flags, making tenuous connections, creating dubious self-advertisements, a popular indie label, a writer from Vice, a music video stealing your image after you've stolen your image from an anonymous army of American apparel models, and a sub-Wes Anderson vision of sub-Anna Karenina. Now I'll be a star forever. Margot, don't go to Olympia, or Lacey, or Renton, Anacourt, Tacoma, or Bellingham. You will be wholly inessential. You'll taint the water supply, pollute the soil. You'll deplete the telepathy, end all conversations, erase all electricity, cease all levity, make joy obsolete, the sum total with your floating, dead-eyed anime masked face, an omnipresent reminder of rotten apple making no fun for everyone. Margot, don't go to Olympia, because you need to learn the lesson in life that no matter if it's London, Brisbane, Tokyo, Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago, or Reno, your luggage will always keep arriving before you do. But I suppose we all know, Margot, that life lessons aren't easily applicable when you can be the singer that doesn't sing, the intellectual refusing to think, the Marxist, obsessive materialist who unironically writes, I love money, whose reactionary parents pay for college, clothes, and Mac makeup, which is still not enough to keep you from begging and complaining and nearly joining the military, still pretending that you're more rebellious than what you label progressives or liberals, still seeking to please the teacher, and such a solipus that if the teacher doesn't play along, assumes it must have something to do with your perceived unattractiveness. Pleasureless yet still promiscuous, a hedonist who hates liberals, the liberated modern woman who longs to be subservient and find a wealthy man who will dominate, the mental patient who insists there is no such thing as the subconscious, and the awkward loner who thinks individuals are the insidious construct of anti-collectivist capitalists. Property is robbery is the trite tripe slogan of someone who has only existed without responsibility, without any self-possessed honesty, with no depth backing the grandstanding. Margot, see what you find in Sri Lanka. See where I grew up in Cicero. Tell the Lamarcas that property is robbery. Tell Mima driving home from the factory that property is robbery. You delusional fool. Property is her way out of drudgery, the ticket past the line of indentured servitude. Without owning the building, you have people who are easily organized and cut off from access, the human experiment called the projects. But it's impossible for you to think beyond your anorexic context, and in your mind, disagreement means judgment, and surely there's nothing worse than that. In your mind, disagreement creates a scale ranging between misogynist and apologist, which is perfect since you also love to disparage feminists, insisting on women being more demure and stylish. And while I'm at it, isn't it always an ist, or at least an ism in your mind, everything neatly categorized, all thoughts and emotions compartmentalized? Margot, at the center of you is abuse, everything you've ignored, informed by the suspicion that for you, life is impacted internment. Despite your outfit's ability to execute your whims and negate people who don't fit into your trends, you have no freedom, and I doubt you can know release. I heard you say, I hate art. Well, Margot, art dreads you, and I look forward to my suspicions being true, that you've become a sullen trophy wife, staving off boredom by blocking websites, on the school council, banning books, or silently voting for abstinence-only sex education. Margot, you are the misinformed, manipulated manifestation of everything expressed by punk fashion shows and Vampire Weekend. And your own words you erase, clear off the page, making yourself the voiceless, unable to raise the questions, too choked to face the stage, wasteful, self-induced inability to articulate your age. No more burlesque! Someone. Waterfalls. Forced sympathy. Enervating congratulation. Botox breakfast. Moon fruit. No more burlesque! An offer of silence. A measure of sanity. A reasonable sense of control. Because it hasn't been earned, and the wires will burn, and the lights will freeze. No more burlesque! Moonflesh playing harp, dancing a rewritten ballet, speaking with the sadhu, and sharing information, circle in circle in a city park. I walked by her once in a line. She was shocked to recognize me. I was all too happy to dodge the people who I'd arrived with, the moments, the months before someone hits the record button. No more burlesque! The order will be determined because in a sense it already is determined. Like the milk in the glass and the honey on the shelf underneath, the fruit on the trees grows naturally, without any help. If anything, it would be an interruption. Audrey, the amateur farmer, painting class teacher, and occasional mother, when the notion takes her, and the weather suits her, changing names every other month, adopting identities from the television, domination, strutting across a runway, starvation, the poise to retain a pose, lactation, the unwinding knitting needles, the steel front door, the stream from the bus stop to the vault floor, giggling, the technology, the ability, the enabling slipping sleep that punches the feathers and exclaims exhalations, the empathy, the stage of photographs and writings like an unintentional confessional or a catharsis without further ramifications or reasons, understanding by proxy, a community of torsos, hand claps and assumed nom de plumes, a convergence of consumptions that folks get very defensive about if you mention their distractions. The humidity got lost in a flurry to uproot the cacti and build rectangles of oak trees so Mrs. Meredith can have her begonia patch, sprinkle a little can of water, and adjust her little straw hat, and adopt a section of wall, and elect a man to speak on her behalf, and pester the county board to get a nice sign to let the public know that these are her wishes, her designations, a living will making clear all her intentions. A wall behind her gate is sleek and strong and tall. The fence in front of that has a moat, and behind that an outdoor kill floor with a 30-foot fall, and the air just keeps flowing. It's imperceptible to trace when someone walks up, knocks 3 times, and says, "Hey, where's the bobcats on the roof? Don't they claw your roof? Had a hell of a damn time getting rid of them." And your back gets soaked with sweat just from walking to the car in the parking lot, just from hiking the kid onto the swing at the park, and the stale breeze through the backyard wind chimes is whistling. Whistling. On another continent, in a retirement community, grandmother asks granddaughter what she thinks. "It's okay," is the response. taking English at university, unwilling to get a proper job because any earned wages would get absorbed by bus fare, clothing updates, and hygiene upkeep. Yes, I am a thief of thoughts, and I cannot save a salary or be a parent or uphold any promises I made when I was only trying to leave the room unnoticed. A new apartment, walking to the fitness center, portfolio for the agency. She listens to a lecture about sexual repression, guys who refuse to perform certain acts, selfishness, stupidity. She fumes and thinks about her boorish ex boyfriends. No excitement, no thrill, just expectations and obligations, directions to lay still, playing upon guilt, making her feel responsible, intimating that she's lucky, subtle self containment, and a status quo of self consciousness, always doubting, never questioning. Even worse was the guy who treated each orgasm as an Olympic medal, a competition of one that he kept winning. He couldn't understand how condescending he was when he held her head and said she should attempt speaking without speaking, saying it without saying it, critiquing her interests as outre, keeping an instant signal while allowing her transmission a 5-second delay. You can paint in the corners, but seriously, don't touch the frame. She sends packages containing chocolate and tea, handwritten notes, and a photo of herself laughing. She edits the scene, disregards the magazine, reverses the reflection, and resumes exercising. Two sisters, Morella and Anna, came from Bucharest, living in Stoke-on-Trent, looking to move to Maidstone, both annoyed at the neighbor above, who keeps blaring Manel. It's just not good music, Anna laughs to Morella. Anna leaves to work at the hotel. Morella wishes she had a Bichon to keep herself company when her sister isn't around. The only time they argue is about where to go after they've left England. Morella wants America, while Anna has her heart set on Australia, though they each know they have time to create their future. Anna has 4 more courses before she becomes a teacher. They made a portrait together for their mother, a large abstract with cherry blossoms in the center. Gave it to her for her birthday. A turtle in the bottom corner and a small frog in a stunning shade of purple, a silver bridge, and small clips of pictures taken from a ledge in Cheltenham. Your panic. How quaint. Your pretension. Of course. Who else could connect? Sorry. Who else could correct an Israeli anarchist and tell them they should label themselves differently? To more broadly appeal to American tourists, your temper tantrums are no longer a surprise, and only you could spend New Year's Day looking at the skies to see if they might be falling. Certainly would make things easier, and that's one way you won't lose your pension. The same thing as being convinced exerting absolute control will keep anyone's attention. No more burlesque. Promises of gifts that haven't been sent, details about plans that never get set, figments of fancy best left undressed. No more burlesque. An archetype equals inactive symbols, flawed perception colored with arrogant concision, disguised as discerning eloquence, the eagle in flight, the documents in sight, the steps gleaming white, a push broom, a toothbrush, a chunk of ginger, the connection fizzing, the wheel spinning. The request is sitting on my desk. I was born in the Midwest, and I come from miners on both sides of my family. My aunt saw Buddy Holly at the winter dance in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm willing to speak as I've always been, willing to hear a point of view and consider that person at least an acquaintance. And I met with the ghosts of Joe Hill and Tom Paine, and I got asked, "Who are you trying to impress?" No one, was my response. Do you ever ask that of others? Not yet, but it seems to make sense, more than most questions. My father's mother told me something that left an indelible impression. Story. If there's you and another person, and there's a flag 200 feet in front of you, and it's understood that whoever gets the flag first wins, you've already won. No matter if you get the flag first, walk backwards, go around in a circle, or stand stock still. The reason is that person defines themselves by someone else's pre-existing standards. And if you don't define yourself at all, it makes no matter if they get the flag or not. They're still a slave to it. And you are free to be anywhere. What if this person doesn't define themselves by such things? That's when you've found a friend. Anything else then? All things is all things? Yes. Don't forget, there's no such thing as degrees of freedom. You are either free or you are a slave. And if you are a slave, you have to find out who you are a slave to and why. So, I vote in elections, obey traffic laws, show up on time, and use linear language. I don't feel the need to abandon it because it's more involved than numbers in a sequence, where the structure meets the discipline, where the structure becomes a code to copy and apply to open areas and determine forms, where open areas become a discipline to reach a decision, to walk or not walk the trail, where the discipline meets destiny, in the day-to-day, in the ones and zeros, in the world of shadows, which new patterns of light puncture and reconfigure the architecture, rebuilds the infrastructure. So if a man puts a stage on a landmark and gets behind the microphone and says that he's restoring order, you know that he's a liar. And if he says that he's restoring honor, well, I don't know, but I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. had corporate sponsors. And that man can't possibly mean honor for all, just a sect, a handful of investors, and a network of supporters and constituents, a series of groups with acronyms for names, a confluence of systems that hopes to cover enough for you to find something to embrace about it. And I found them last night barking directives, spray painting the snow with enormous orange pink letters, and I waited until they left, and I went out there with a shovel and cleared the way, swept off the slush, chopped the ice, and made a path. And by the next morning their message had melted into a soggy mess, and my neighbors had cleared a walkway as well, and we spoke about the town charter, the aqueducts, and the phone number for a good roofer. Then my wife and I went to the market to buy food for dinner, and there were no wings on the streets, no distractions, just three teenagers, one boy, two girls standing in front of the library, starting to sing. I looked at their body language and clothes, and I tapped my wife's elbow and said, "That kind of reminds me of me when I was that old." Well, good luck to them. We waved, she started smiling, and we made up a new song of our own. Icicle stream with a white signal channeling, the clock measurements out in chalk on bricks, the stencil fit the wall, time signature increments, the birds, the fish, the deer pausing at the outer lip of the forest to avoid traffic. A dozen women walk together forwards and sideways, holding their keys, pens, and parking passes. They stand at the information centers. They read the small typeface before proceeding the railway. The conductor makes a joke, collects a ticket, dispenses change. The train streaks by the storefront in its new window display. The passenger turns abruptly to read what it has to say. In the eyebrow arch, the headmaster trickery with tacit complicity, which leaks across silently. There is a bite mark that is ours. We were awake when it was happening, and we excel at remembering. Evade the hunt! Confound and confuse them! Expose them! Release them! Free them! Evade the hunt! They did everything they could think of. Affixed you with a label, forged what isn't legal. Evade the hunt! When there's no rules, it's obvious who's responsible. There are no sides, and there are no armies. This argument is an illusion, a pantomime, a presentation. Your breath is your breath. Your mind is your mind. Your life is your life. A circle wave. Your fingers and the flowers in the bowl of water spin around and reflect in the mirror which sends back the light, and your eyes are your eyes. Your sight is your sight. There are no sides in life. In life. It's called Windy Sequins. Through the missing bricks, you could see a banquet table with a candelabra crooked from water-falling wax. On the other side of the missing bricks is a tablecloth with faintly gray claw stains left by mourning doves. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table, heaving with indentations from apples, persimmons, cantaloupes, and pears. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a deer walking in the distance while a finger painting floats to the ground. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table with unopened telegrams and sturdy silver trays stacked up with books about the Enlightenment. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a pebble garden placed on a tree branch next to a mortar and pestle. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table, lined along the bottom right edge with bowls of cold dandelion soup. Seated 45 degrees away from the banquet table is a man with a salt and pepper waxed mustache humming waltzes and complaining about the distortions of sounds and colors. 110 years old, and he doesn't know that electric blue can be beautiful too. This is called Pearls. There'd been a robbery in her apartment. The dentist dabbed at the blood dripping off his drill and said, "That was a lot more than I expected." They had hit Carrie's place while she slept. The cops spent the early hours asking her questions like, did she have any enemies, perhaps somebody from her family? They told her to screen her calls, implored her to invest in some security. Ultimately, the only items of value taken were a few pieces of jewelry. Bankers' boxes were duct taped shut and loaded in the truck, their contents filled with scrap to go get melted down by guys who didn't care whether it came from an abandoned ironworks or was brass stolen from a Catholic school. Gregory never thought it would come to this. The ranch was facing foreclosure. He'd gotten a wedge of glass jammed into his hand, and his girlfriend had spent $25 she didn't have on an ugly antique horseshoe she hung upside down in the doorway. "I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave that you wouldn't speak any longer. I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave, walled in a cold fog." Gregory looked down at the 4 inches of stained skin on his left forearm and thought what that symbol had meant to him when he was 18, and then how gutted he felt when he noticed the girl at the bank had the same thing on her ankle. While the detective tried to focus on the negatives from the crime scene, intently scanning for details he might otherwise miss, but he was distractedly irritated by the accidental double exposures and dark splotches of silver salts on his fingertips. "I used to walk much quicker and look over my shoulder. Now I no longer worry. I used to walk much quicker, but now I've been absolved of responsibility." There was a beautiful storm last night that disrupted the 90-degree heat and blocked out the 6 p.m. sun, the smell of mud running over the fresh blacktop, icy rain that came like the crest of a wave cutting short the humidity, my clothes and hair getting drenched, the holes in the soles of my shoes letting the water soak my feet as I walked in circles across the nearly empty lot. called Parallel Place. I live in a parallel place where the land is level, where the streets are bright in the evenings and I know what tomorrow brings. I live in a parallel place where the wind is cold, where gray haired men sweep the bandshell and foxes sleep under church bells. I hear the lank haired women walking in the morning, their faces shaped by the sun. I live in a parallel place where there's endless electricity with very low voltage, where everyone dies of old age. I live in a parallel place where rain runs into a tunnel, where able bodied women claw the gutters and dragonflies rise in a slow motion flutter. I see the able bodied men hauling fallen branches, their faces shaded by the sun. I live in a parallel place where people speak in peace, where the foreman's spouse greets the mailman in a see-through blouse. I live in a parallel place where the forest faces east, where contracts are written in invisible ink and codes are created with a wink. I see all the people breathing through the day, their faces graced by the sun. Blissful cardinals, blissful infants, blue reflections magnified 10,000 times, blue beams bouncing off aged lenses, radiant artifacts, radiant heirlooms, white sails blistered by the salty sun, white china stacked up in cupboards, shining domes, shining necklaces, green feelings balanced on a yardstick, green parchment weighted down by grapes. It's called Blue Silk Scepter. The kink in my neck that runs to my kidneys, distracting me from movies I've long since memorized and repeating quotations I've lived inside of. I have no desire to rewrite history that doesn't concern me. When what I didn't know already felt familiar, when I saw the inscription on my commemorative plaque had been worn back to smooth silver, when I slipped behind the mist, changed clothes, washed my hands, and shaved, with no light, with no intention of anyone seeing my face for a while. I was willingly walked through a coal-stained city lot and deposited in the back seat of an already running windowless army green car, which was then locked from the outside. Mary! Had I abandoned my practice, committed an indirect affront in my brief absence? My name is Keith. The beggar at my door raised his arm, but soft, while I listened to his parables that had no center. My name is Luke. With an auspicious mistress beside me, I looked at a baby looking out a window at fluttering street signs. My name is Julia. My temper was gentle as I read a sermon called, Are You Here to Celebrate the Death of Death? My name is Giles. I wish that I'd been obscured when my ears were bitten with endearment while I was plainly ignored. My name is Grace. I was observed by 3 people whose accounts proved suggestible and fractured. My name is Abigail. I faced hard construction when I, in truth, spoke forcefully about my forged fingerprints. My name is Morgan. I spent twilight emptied save for sketching a red tunic on bent paper. My name is Brooke. I was registered in a hotel under an assumed name and made lists of families I pitied. My name is Gabriel. I singed my hair and clothes trying to be recalled. The sky's been moonless for 29 nights. Why couldn't I stay? I was bothered by the way the streetlights hit the trees and reflected off the leaves. I took a knife and short length of rope. 6 hours later, I'm waiting for you to arrive, carrying a scepter and wearing a breastplate with frayed shoulder blades and exhausted eyes. I'm waiting for you to arrive, sitting cross-legged on the sodden deck with wayward souls who were barely seen. I leapt off the ledge and was soon out of hunt as I climbed the concave shores, wondering if I should forage, catch a gudgeon, or eat unbruised fruit that had fallen. The gravelly, guttered soil gave way to encroaching forest, dense with rows of weighted, wet purple limbs that succumbed to gravity and wind. Then abruptly I was in the center of a champaign, and the only objects I found were short rows of tree stumps and stones, each carved with the query, "What made you look here?" I jaunced away into the odd even and was again pursued by the thicket's reach. The thorns licked my calves, the anthills shone like pebbled glass. I brushed past a frog with a violet tongue and discolored teeth, who gulped for relief while his body remained static like a splayed thread in aspic. I made my way into the antres and found myself prating, "Pretty, pray tell, what you remember of working your hands into the mud and feeling it curl under your fingernails. It feels like a relic reunited with its original setting after having been figured lost or only seen in a dream." Betimes I glanced around for the traveling lamp while standing beside the curvature, hearing myself call the datelessly abandoned wizards in leasing and be faithfully young-eyed. I returned once more to the champagne and sat among the stones in silence. I received no visions or visitations, no inspiration to invent an incantation, and in this vacuum of communication, I only experienced the sense or perchance suggestion of the imposing perseverance and atmosphere. And now I notice this restless weather, shy beams of sunlight moving sideways through the strings of remaining rain. This is called Ruth Stearns. You are beautiful, and I'm trying to be more like you, even though I was only 7 years old then. The only person who never censored me or told me to shut up. I watched you shrink a foot and a half from cancer and lose all your hair. But I'll never think of you as a victim or powerless. I'll always think of you as regal, graceful, and intelligent. This is called Fingerhouse. Where should I go? Empty and without suggestion. Dry bathtub, antiseptic self. Turquoise pottery carefully washed, not included in collection debates, and can catalog itself. A black and white television crackling on the last analog signal, transmitting drip brush pixelation to friends who have never met before dawn, with unbent antennas and tinfoil knobs. No larger connection and no network without notice or critical thought. pure broadcast. Where should I go? To a cricket's lake where Mona Lisa and George Washington's faces urgently run by on filmy soap transfers until they burst into digital diagonal scribbles that shock sleeping bluebirds and hunting robins, where austere diagrams of skeletons are traced into colored chalk onto trees and oil sticks litter the walkways, where oysters recover jewelry fallen overboard and forgotten, where flashlights find glimpses into windows and fluoride is poured into jugs of cola. Where should I go? With a shopping bag full of batteries, returning a stolen bike to its parent company, walking in between unclean delivery trucks in need of repair, while raw-toned steel whistle air floats on wisps of strawberry hair, and accelerated voices and nonsensical 10-second annoyances, a magician perfecting an illusion which ends with them curling up and sliding down a tree, then pretending to be asleep while assessing what the crowd seems to think. Then a throne is carried on, seating a man in a parchment crown and wrapped in beach towels. Where should I go? Into a kitchen with aluminum knives and nurses in white lab coats and blue rubber gloves, rolls of tissue paper, and unfolded t-shirts and personalized engraved nameplates. Where should I go? Knees to the chest, laying on the cool ground. Scissors, heels pressed together. Toes toward the sun, back to the cool ground. Where should I go? Knees to the ground. Slow flash. Moments before dawn, phone ringing, unable to suss if it was happening from impressions born in shallow sleep while lights flicked on in neighbors' windows. Or as the drift seized me back in, we were gun runners trapped in a house, detained by police, threatened by rivals, but I was able to slither out a side door and snuck away to a cafe where I was supposed to summon assistance, but decided instead, the hell with them. I was called to a room. The walls of the hallway were blue, and when I entered, there they sat, looking exactly as they did in 1984. When one spoke, there was no sound from their mouths, but the words sank loudly in my skull. Crushed flowers float downstream in the rainwater, and handmade smokestacks drip steam on half-awake blades of grass. New nuns count the gray hairs of their predecessors as they scan old photographs. Will they question who's alive in heaven? Are their words papering a mountain? They will have a moment where they behold the beauty of an empty screen or unplowed, snow-covered street, lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. Thick shimmering splotches of gray grease liquefy and start to drip down, rust-colored walls of skins watched by a babe with a flashbulb embedded in their wrist who sits on gouged black and gold tiles in the center of a disused ballroom dance floor among carelessly flung piles of metal-pronged monitors, cords, discs, spilled coffee grounds, broken vodka bottles, and asymmetrical platinum wigs. Every year there's a whisper the inventory will get a clean transfer. Winston Dubois knew the recovered money was wrapped in a mosquito net and secured in the back of a carriage. The horse stopped in front of an Air Force base, which got inadvertently captured on videotape, with the footage dissected by theorists for decades. Desmond Hampton learned Tony Chamberlain had double-crossed him as he drank milk and clapped erasers together outside his classroom. His signature had been forged and hidden throughout the system. The younger best brother thinks, if only I were a CEO buying companies whose names I don't know and could leverage my credibility to simultaneously flaunt my status and champion myself as an obscurity. The older best brother thinks, if only I were an oligarch and had a tapestry of machinery to do what I want, live in seclusion, invest in rare art, and pay for a hooker who looks like my daughter. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up.
Beams of starshine light land everywhere and leave valley-wide fingerprints for 7 years. My new glass tubes can shiver without bursting, squid ink on glistening diamonds laid out on linens, spirals scrawled on maps with the location leading inside a puzzle box, while fungus slides up to a microscope and mixes with vinegar and bleach, circles of sapphires line linoleum tile, with a surface so improbably clear it mimics a screen. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up.
This is called White Cello.
Talk to me. I'm in the open window. I'm not in time and I've got your watch and I need to learn to play this white cello. Scratch the surface. I'm on the shore with a can of sugar. It's never bitter. I'd really rather be playing though because I like the white strings and the white bow. That's not her. That's her. Was the simplest thing you said today. I'm still reeling with no moments except now. You don't possess any microscopes, so instead I will take the telescope. I'm trying to be angelic, which isn't easy after getting desensitized with disappointments every night, eating fresh vegetables, but planning, you already know. And then you talk me out of it. You don't have a pistol in your waistcoat, your teeth aren't flecked with flax seeds, my misjudgments are my own, and most are unknown, but just because I'm a pacifist doesn't mean I'll let any dumb motherfucker abuse me, and speaking of myself, notice me! I'm standing next to the tree where the guy crashed the stolen car, then got out and ran for it, but I can behave for over 100 days, and I've squandered my efforts and so much goodwill that I sometimes still need to convince myself that I should try to take lessons to play at all, but I'm sure that you want me to, and I know what I can do. And with that, we're not missing anything. We're humming songs through the phone. We're midnight movers. We're holy rollers without a religion. No, we're not. And don't be the guy on the bike in the right lane racing for his life against rush hour traffic in the morning. I know you are, and you know that I care, and I feel like I'm Clark Kent, all dressed up in primary colors, and I just haven't taken off my glasses yet. She said to me, as long as it's not evil, and I said to her, I cannot be evil, certainly not right now, but it's the rising sun, it's a hard-boiled egg, it's basil, it's a blue charm. I just want to play the white cello. I just want to sit in a circle and think about it some more. So are we going to wrap this up or are we going to test people's patience? No, I'm thinking out loud. It's warm communication. Instead, we're going to change some channels. Quarters, dimes, and nickels, and all assembly this must be wearing a blue suit. Go to the slants and cut off your slants, and it'll be like reverse safari, where they put lions, cheetahs, and tigers in the truck and drive around and showing people shopping and walking down the street or pumping gas. It'll be the apex of manifestation. It won't be something that's in the Bible, but it will be like the Bible. Or it'll be a suburban safari where some guy named Greg gives you a little pith helmet and plastic binoculars, and you wait under his kitchen table for the cat to use the litter box. But why does it gotta be white? Never heard from before. Advertising space available. Clean, clear water. And of course, the tastiest tomatoes. It's called physical copies. He detached himself years ago, spent every night this week with his face in his phone, or making excuses why he cannot come home. What is he looking at for so many hours? Where does he go? What is it that captivates him so? You respect his privacy, but you also have the right to know. Maybe he only wants the girlfriend experience instead of the reality. Perhaps he can only cope with false intimacy. Or maybe it just took this long to discover that his natural disposition could easily be described as unpleasantly empty. Maybe in his mind he's only got 8 months to live. Maybe he's just too afraid to be embarrassed. Or maybe he only cares about his ease of convenience. You figure that he can't even remember the memories that you treasure. You catch him glancing at you and wonder if he's recalling something he once heard Mr. Blackwell say. The more hardware, the less personality. What does he spend his money on? All you know is that he never has enough. He doesn't buy the things that he used to show interest in, and he certainly hasn't gotten you a gift in months. He doesn't seem to respond to your new clothes, makeup, or perfume. And there's the most disconcerting fact when you realize that even the implants won't bring him back. It's called Dance the Night Away. A blue wave sprayed gently onto the window. It remained an unfaded crescent reaching over the rooftop. Birds flew through untethered. Droplets yawned in sonorous applause. The shape succumbed, giving way by matching passing movements. As when water splashes in the sky, a maypole stands unraveled, while a sunfish kisses a butterfly. The fences were then a canvas, soaked tissue paper sprung over electrical wires, fragile forktails freshly shaven, as bronze tiger beetles glanced up at the heavens. Dance the night away! All right, everyone. And that wraps up an exciting episode of the quarantine stream. Hope that you had fun. Let us hear the quarantine stream theme one more time, shall we?
Life is but a dream in a quarantine stream.
Lovely. All right, everyone. Hope you've had fun. By the grace of God, we will be back next week. Until then, stay safe, stay smart, and here's the important part: stay free, because you already are. And and very big special thanks to our openers, to our beautiful and now Halku. And like I said, hope you've enjoyed this. And like I also said, by the grace of God, hopefully we will be back next week. I'm pretty confident that we will be though. So anyway, until then, everyone, everybody, goodbye. Goodbye.